G'day, I'm Pete Seligman. There are a growing number of people thinking about buying a business in this region, but it can be hard to see what that actually looks like. So to help bring one part of that process to life, I've teamed up with my mates Jason Andrew and James Frank to throw some businesses on the table and share our raw thoughts on each. This is ETA Downunder. We hope you enjoy it. Forklift sales and rentals. Engineering, which looks like a fab shop.
Yeah.
Outdoor gear, which is probably similar to the
retail business.
Retail.
Yeah. Let's do this one.
Excavation.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's do this.
So
I'm already excited.
I know. It's the photo that does it. I got to say though, photos.
It's a beautiful rear end.
They do make a big difference. Photos, yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure about the health and safety of the guy standing in the trench. From memory, I believe that if the trench is greater than, I think it's like 900 deep, it needs to have shoring, and that trench has no shoring. So, anyway.
That's we could get a sponsor, Shore Hire, if you're out there. Shore Hire.
That's I think we've got a dwarf in that trench, and that's not 900. That's less the lowest than 900.
Right. Okay.
It's like, I think
All right.
So off, Pete.
Really short guy. Okay, so civil excavation, 10 million of revenue, 2 of earnings, which to me sounds strong for that kind of business. Preferred partner for numerous top-tier corporations renowned for their expertise in critical water and sewer infrastructure, stormwater solutions, pumping stations, precision bore and inspection pits, comprehensive suite of civil excavation services. Right, so this is not what you'd necessarily then kind of describe as a contractor. They could potentially be involved in a whole bunch of maintenance work for infrastructure stuff, which could be where they're getting their margin from. And I don't know about you guys, but that just feels like quite a healthy margin for that kind of business.
I feel like they're going to sit in that space of it's repeatish kind of work. Right, panelish kind of repeat work. It's like, and I think that goes with Sydney Water accredited.
Small.
Like we just,
It'll be like we're replacing 50 meters of pipe in suburban street XYZ. We need you to send an excavator and dig a trench for us. I'm not convinced on the old EBITDA usage here. I'll be honest. Immediate flag. True. Yeah, so
$1 million plan of equipment makes your EBITDA with the depreciation and instant asset write-off look pretty good.
Yeah,
exactly.
But I think I like the photo. I like the industry. I like. There's a lot to like about this. And
so the thing I agree with the kind of industry demand, organic growth, that kind of stuff. I mean, infrastructure is Sydney Water, far out. That's just a massive. That's 100 years worth of work just sitting there waiting to be done in terms of that network of pipes, all that sort of stuff, right? So there's no end of work to be done there, and it is, if they get it right. Like I actually don't mind high volumes of those smaller projects because the margins are usually better. If you're good at managing utilization, it means that you kind of just get in and get out and get that stuff done. And usually, if you're a relatively small part of that overall project cost, they've got to replace the pipes in a whole suburb, and you're just sitting in and going and doing one street at a time. They're not really hassling too much about whether or not you're charging them X or Y. Your rates can be pretty solid. So
and generally these developments, like there's kind of a plan, right? It's like they've a contracted plan over a number of years. So it's like, cool, here's the plan over the next 3 years. You've kind of got almost, I wouldn't say contracted revenue, but it's predictable. If you're the guy to do it's fairly predictable, and you can plan around it. Because I think the hardest part about these types of businesses are you've got like a services labor component, but you also got the CapEx with utilization of the machines and the people. And so this is like a thing about logistics, like, big haulage, like, it's, you need to get trucks on the road, right? If you've got trucks sitting in your yard, you're not generating revenue, you're not utilizing that asset, and you want to make sure that you've got your big excavators on the ground digging shit up, or otherwise,
and definitely from a due diligence perspective, you want to be checking that fleet, right? Like,
for sure.
A maintenance program, like, is there suddenly are they selling the business because the fleet is getting to the end of life and they've got millions of dollars worth of capex coming up over the next 3 years? That's obviously a pretty important thing to test there.
Yeah, definitely.
I think
sorry.
Yeah, I think it's two things, two flags for me, sort of red flags. One is a lot of the descriptions around water, right? So it's kind of like, okay, you are one of 38 Sydney Water. That's awesome. Like we're really attracted to that because it's a moat, pardon the pun. But at the same time, if it may be all different contractors, but if the ultimate customer is Sydney Water, if they decide to turn off their maintenance program, then potentially. So I think flag of what's your ultimate customer concentration. If it's developers, then great. There's a good spread there. And the other thing is, I thought, well, how much of the owner is involved at a 10 mil turnover business of this size? Like, it sounds like it could be quite owner heavy in terms of it. But as I said, I love yellow goods, so I'm still in at the moment.
Yeah, I think the owner piece is really important, and these ones can be quite. I mean, if you compare this to the candles and bath bombs that we were looking at before, right? Like, one of the things about this one is that engaging with that team is going to be super important. Like, you'll have a team of people out there that are all the qualified operators of this kit. And how do you make sure that you've got that team on board, you've got that team kind of operating and moving in the right way, and they'll have like great relationships with that existing owner. And it's really like that dynamic directly impacts performance. And then your ability to grow, like, what does it look like from 10 million to 20 million? Like, how does that business change shape from here to there? And I think that process is really important because, again, to the equipment piece, like, with every extra $1 million worth of revenue, what does your balance sheet start to look like? So all of those dynamics. Again, I mean, it's like everything, right? Like, there needs to be some kind of affinity between the new owner and the business type. So you don't necessarily need to know how to drive an excavator, but you need to have some kind of interest in that space. So you get in there and get kind of stuck in.
Filling with water.
That's probably one of my unknown skills, is driving an excavator. So there you go.
Oh, there you go.
Really?
Favorite pastime. I leveled an entire backyard, filled in a pool. It was glorious. Glorious.
So you're a lawyer, mate. What do you mean? Yeah, what? Like, this makes sense. You're a lawyer. Like, how's that?
Yeah, I know.
You're a keyboard warrior, like, read books and stuff. Like, what do you mean digging holes?
Read books.
Read books and have arguments. That's all you do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he just took your off. Loves the debate, loves the conversation.
That's all right, James.
With the argument piece, yeah.
All Jason does is works in Excel and then writes with a green and red pen. It's like,
literally. Yeah, it's my life. I'm a keyboard warrior.
A life coloured by red and black.
I reckon this one's pretty good. Let's. I mean, we didn't try. We kind of did try it with the last one, but let's try pricing. Like, how do we work out how much you pay for this thing?
Well, I first work out what's the value of the fleet. I think that's the first question, because these things are expensive, right? How much debt's on the balance sheet? What's the market price of the yellow machines, and then so I look at how you price on a net asset value basis, and then you look at it. Well, okay, what implied multiples that spit out based on earnings, and if it's roughly that kind of 2 or 3, well, then I think you're in the money. I think the risk with these types of businesses is that, again, going back to that asset utilization things, is like these haulage businesses, they carry a lot of assets in terms of hard assets like capex, but the earnings profile is really low, and so. You're talking to these folks about, like, hey, we'll pay 2 or 3 times earnings, but they're like, no, I'm carrying $20 million worth of machinery on my books. Like, how does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, well, it doesn't. Exactly. Your business doesn't make sense. Like, you need to either get rid of some of these machines or use them more. Like, because at the moment your business is broken, and they don't get it because they're like, no, I've literally got hard assets here worth more than what you're offering in terms of enterprise value. So
You're
I think
right.
that's
We've seen that in we've seen that in the trucking space, where a number of guys actually just sold fleets. Instead of selling their business, they just said, "Hey, we're going to stop and we'll just sell fleets," and they've got more out of fleet sales than they would have got on a multiple of earnings. I reckon for me, I'm looking at I'm taking an average of a big period of data, and I'm looking at what's the kind of earnings and what's the capex spend, sort of work out your sort of maintenance capex, your equipment capex moving forward, and then adjusting sort of your earnings, because they'll say EBITDA is 2 mil, but if I've got to spend $500,000 in fleet each year, well then you're getting a benefit, but I'm not. So I'm looking at what's the sustainable, like future maintainable earnings based on a capex spend, because I'm assuming that the fleet is probably not as good as they think it is, and I'm probably going to have to either increase maintenance or increase acquisition to increase revenue, right? So,
for sure,
but I also think this one, because of the accredited, you're looking at a share sale, right? So, the kind of points of leverage potentially around, you've depreciated it all. So how do we manage kind of thinking about value of plant and equipment versus actual entity value? But I reckon there's some good points of leverage here, but you kind of need a willing seller to kind of see that there's some risk on this deal.
And a very good accountant on their side, so they can help describe what like that dynamic for them if they haven't already. It could be a good one for that whole EBITDA less capex type equation, which you're talking about, right? So because the DAR sometimes doesn't match well enough to the actual capex, and so you could just do EBIT, but then like you're subject to accounting there. Whereas take the DAR out, like, we'll add the DAR back, take the capex out. You get like more of a real cash flow kind of there. I think.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but this would be there could be the catch for the unwary buyer in that your depreciation rules have changed, right? So FY23 was last instant asset write-off. So if they've loaded the last 3 or 4 years, you're not going to get the same DAR, moving forward, right? So
definitely.
You kind of the issues.
I think it definitely skews the EBITDA number, like just inflates it. But I think the other thing to be conscious of is like the tax, the tax shield that you get. Like a lot of people think about the EBITDA, and when they're buying these types of businesses where there's a large component of capex, you're buying them based on profit multiples. But like if you can compare buying this business versus say a services business, like an engineering business where there's no very limited capex, right? It's just people mainly. The advantage of buying like a capex heavy business, so you actually get depreciation benefits. It actually comes off that acts as a tax shield. So you get some post, your cash flows are kind of shielded by a tax thing. Where in services businesses, the value that you buy is essentially most of the goodwill, which you can't do anything with from a tax perspective. And so to your point earlier about like, would this be a share sale? Probably would be because of the contracts and, some licensing. But just as a tip, you can actually get a revalue of the assets through like a tax consolidation. So you can actually get that back if you get some clever structuring, which you can talk to me about after anyone listening. So that you can still get the benefit of that. But to your point, this is why I don't like EBITDA. Like, and it's a term thrown around. Rip Charlie Munger, but like the bullshit earnings thing about EBITDA is really true and very accurate. It's like fundamentally EBITDA should be free cash flow, right? Particularly these businesses. So I was like, well, what is the free cash? And that's an exercise that everyone really should do in pre-diligence stage. It's like, what's the actual free cash?
Actually do the cash flow statement properly rather than just kind of bluntly relying on the EBITDA number.
Which is really shits me when brokers don't give balance sheets when they give out IMs. I'm like, a P&L is useless, honestly. So you put anything in there.
It's just half the story, right?
Exactly.
No, awesome.
So you must really hate, Jason, adjusted EBITDA.
Oh, I love the adjusted EBITDA. So I just know to ignore most of it. It's like rubbish. There's this thing we say internally: the more adjustments there are to EBITDA, like the less quality of the business. And so, if they were prepared, they would just run the business as they should run the business with no, not employing, your best mate on payroll or a mistress, or, putting your household mortgage through the books, which I've seen before. It's like, just run it like a profitable, sustainable business and, make it sellable, right? You basically want to package your business up like an Amazon, like you're selling something on Amazon. Make it like package it all up so it makes it very easy for someone to click the buy button and get it done. That's all you want. It's
The other thought there is, if you do want to run it like a personal piggy bank, just put a company above it. At least make the target look nice, and then if you want to do that sort of thing, which we don't stress is not what I would suggest. But for the sake of all the buyers out there, at least just leave the operating code to be nice and clean, and we can come in and have an absolute feast on that. Yeah. Anyway,
awesome.
I'm an inquirer. I'm a tentative inquirer.
Yeah.
In this one.
Yeah. I think I'd be the same. I think I'd be kind of somewhere in the middle. The weight of the capex is quite heavy, but I kind of don't mind having to deal with that as long as the seller is ready for it. I think that's the biggest risk, is kind of what's the seller's intention, and is it kind of aligned with something that's going to get the right value for both.
Yeah. I'm probably on the fence. Like these, this sort of stuff isn't my jam generally. But I mean, I might throw some money in if someone wants to do it and
have a go at
it. Someone who's done this before. Yeah.
Well, there we go. Well, let's see what happens. We might get a call. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. If you want to learn more, please hit us up on LinkedIn. You can find all 3 of our profiles in the show notes below. And stay tuned for the next episode.